This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Pierson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Wednesday, September 24th of 2025. We're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I'm joined by Reece Pierson of New Holland as we talk about 50 years of New Holland's twin rotor technology and how a lot of it is still the same. We'll also have a check of the closing markets with Kenan Layden of agmarket.net. First, here's that conversation with New Holland's Reece Pierson as we discuss how not only is twin rotor technology celebrating 50 years, but it's starting to seem like a lot of the rest of the industry is finally catching on to the technology.
We are standing in front of the twin rotor combines, and it's 50 years of the twin rotor combine. We've got the old all the way up to the new.
Yep.
First off, tell us about the importance of recognizing just how long twin rotor technology has been not only a part of New Holland, but it has remained a part of it.
Yep. No, it's a great storyline for us, right? 50 years twin rotor technology. You know, you've seen a lot of other companies in the industry start to go towards that twin rotor. They're starting to realize what we found out 50 years ago, right? So this TR70 behind us, if we start to look at some of the cool features on there, the theory behind that and how smart our engineers were, a lot of that theory is still in that next gen CR11 that we see over there, right? It's gotten bigger, faster, stronger, more powerful, all of that. But the heart of that combine, the twin rotor, is still there today.
And I think it's very interesting to have that direct comparison because if you come down to it, like you mentioned, the core principle of the combine is still there in today's newest models, right?
Yep, absolutely. So, you know, if we start at the front of the combine where the crop goes in, right, our feeder house. Well, if we look at this TR70 behind us, if we look, the feeder house opening is the same width as our rotors, right? So we've got that match width feeding that New Holland's known for. And it started 50 years ago. If I go to that CR11, if we look at the feeder house, right, it's still the match width feeding. It's gotten bigger because I've got twin 24-inch rotors now versus what I had in the TR70, but the principle's still there, right? So that core technology that New Holland's had over those years to get us, you know, better samples, more capacity, less losses, you know, that heritage is still in our machines today.
So then when we look back here at the CR11, what are the top benefits that have kind of come to fruition in the most recent model that are kind of the latest developments that farmers can look forward to?
Yep. So, you know, when we start developing combines and looking at what we need to do, we just didn't want to get bigger, right? We wanted to basically help decrease the total cost of harvesting. So how do we do that, right? Better uptime, right? So if we look at that combine, there's no drive chains on it. There are a couple conveying chains, but no drive chains to have to worry about in oil. There's no daily grease zerks, so you've got some 50 hours, but nothing daily, again, to help improve that uptime. You know, another part of that is, can we harvest more? Absolutely with that machine. But you also have to, that's half the story, right? It's losses on the ground. So basically we are shooting for a zero loss combine behind that machine. And you know, last fall I had the chance to demo it around the state of Illinois, southern Wisconsin. And we say zero loss harvesting, and I think we pretty well mean it. You can walk behind that combine and not find much on the ground, even at the high throughput levels that we can achieve.
All right, Reece, that's lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to stay in touch with New Holland and the latest product releases, how can they do that?
You can visit us here at the farm show if you're here, or any future farm shows, or go to newholland.com.
That again was Reece Pierson of New Holland. We'll go ahead and take a look at the closing markets next, but first, here's a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and it's time now to take a look at the closing markets with Kenan Layden of agmarket.net. First off, Kenan, what do we see going on in the grains today?
Down day, slightly down day for the grains, not necessarily a huge mover. corn continues to kind of be range bound, can't quite get over that 430 mark. Made an attempt today, was up a little higher and then sold off slightly. Beans, I guess the big news out of there is, Argentina lifted that export tax earlier in the week, and China's been buying beans out of there, so doing everything they can to avoid U.S. beans, which has kind of placed a 800-pound gorilla in the room with China doing everything they can not to buy U.S. beans. So beans continue to be slightly pressured, maybe not as big of moves down as we saw the last few days, and wheat still can't quite find a footing. We get a nice rally day, maybe think the lows are in, and then it continues to erode slightly. Anytime you get a positive feeling in that wheat, it's kind of a how low can it go?
Then, of course, as you mentioned with the China situation, trade talks hoping to happen there. At this point in the market, still hoping for those talks to happen, or has enough happened to where, with other countries, to where the markets are kind of moving past that and just factoring it in as a negative?
Well, right now with price action and beans hovering closer, November beans closer to that $10 level, which is more towards the lower end of their yearly trading range. Lows are made at 960, then 980 at various points. And then the upper end, we've had, 1070 twice. I would say that the market is discounting any news that China's going to come in, or there's going to be substantial bean shipments out of North America, at least in the near term. All of this can switch on a dime with political news and announcements, but it seems that every time there is a China hope for news, the can just gets kicked down the road. So when they actually do something, it might be like the boy who cried wolf. We've heard it so many times, they might do something, nothing happens, market moves lower, that when it actually does, if it actually ever does, it'll be a shock to the market, at least me too. But
then over on the livestock side of things, how did cattle and hogs trade today?
weaker today, making some new highs yesterday in the hogs. That hog report is coming out on Friday, and some of the questions are there, looking at some different size weights. Some of the heavier pigs are maybe less than a year ago, and then some of those lighter weight pigs maybe slightly higher than a year ago. So market will be watching that report. Cattle were softer today too. Cash, steady to a little bit lower. Fear cattle index was up slightly, but some of those live cattle values were flat to a little bit lower. North is a little weak. South has been stronger, especially with no Mexican cattle coming across the border. Placements on the cattle from feed last week were, continue to be really low in Texas. So, market still has bearish fundamentals, and cattle market has some wild swings from day to day.
All right, Kenan, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch for more from agmarket.net, how can they do that?
Yeah, just check us on the web at agmarket.net and search through some of our market intel and information.
All right, Kenan, lots of great information today. Thanks again for the chat, as always, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Riley.
That again was Kenan Layden of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers closed through the market window at iowaagnet.com.
At the close, December corn down 2 even at 424 and a quarter. November soybeans down 3 even at 1009 even. October soybean meal down 340 at 271.70. October soybean oil down 6 cents at 49.29. Chicago wheat down 1 even at 519 and a half. Kansas City hard red winter wheat down 4 3/4 at 506 and 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat unchanged at 567 and 3/4. December oats up 1/4 cent at 308 and 3/4. On the Merc, October live cattle down 155 at 234.05. October feeders down 250 at 359.62. October lean hogs down $1.10 at 99.42. Pork cut out when unchanged at 104.45. And October Class 3 milk down 8 cents at 17.02.
That's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM, and that also brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also follow us on social media at Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok. and find our video content as well as previous episodes of AM PM on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Check out as well our free morning, midday, and closing market podcasts, as well as the Iowa Ag Matters podcast and Pods of Potential. Find those on your favorite podcasting services at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson, Andy Peterson, and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.